Here we are on the tiny little march in London. You see, the rules don't apply to the elites, apparently. That's the thing. The rules don't apply to Matt Hancock while he tracks and traces little ladies' tonsils, but the rules do apply to us, apparently. Well, I'm sorry, but enough is enough.
We don't chase anything, and we don't waste our dreams. The more we let go, yeah, the more that we get. The more, yeah, the more that we get. We wanna be free, wanna be ourselves. Don't wanna do it like anyone else. Gonna ring that freedom bell and let go. We wanna be free, wanna be ourselves. Don't wanna do it like anyone else. Gonna ring that freedom bell and let go. Freedom, freedom. That's how we want it. Freedom.
It's time for change. It's time for us, the people, to stand up and say enough is enough. We're not tolerating this nanny state anymore, and the people's voices will be heard. That's what's happening in London today, and this should be happening all across the UK.
The more we let go, yeah, the more that we get. The more, yeah, the more that we get.
I'm here for hospitality. I think it's quite clear that those that make the rules aren't following them, and enough is enough, and I want to be open for all.
Everybody is here today because they've had enough of the government hypocrisy and double standards and the precedents that have been set for the conditions on our freedom.
We are all utterly sick to death of the lies and the hoax, and particularly the government corruption.
And even if all of this ends tomorrow, which some people might think it will, the most important thing is that we establish that it can never happen again, because I don't want my children growing up with the threat of these restrictions looming over them.
Just with this lockdown, it's had a significant impact on people's mental health.
Here for freedom, mate. Fighting for freedom of choice, freedom of movement, freedom to assemble, all of that. And I'm totally with him. I'm just whatever he said, I agree with.
That's how we want it. That's how we want it. Freedom. That's how we want it. You know that's how we want it. That's how we want it. That's how we want it.
The general public has no idea of the vaccine industry's corruption, power, influence, wealth, crimes, and damages. I'll give some links to that information in a minute. Especially well hidden is the human suffering caused by this industry. So how is it possible that information like that can be hidden from the public? The short answer is money. Vaccine companies collect much more profit than most other industries, and that profit is used to purchase corrupt legislation and media propaganda to mislead the public about how safe and effective vaccines are. We know that most medical products and services are priced higher than other industries, but the vaccine industry has leveraged that to new levels. The vaccine industry does not have to maintain retail stores. The laboratories they maintain are relatively small and few, and they hold patents on their products, which gives them monopoly leverage on their product pricing. But then they reinvested their massive cash reserves to sponsor legislation to transfer most of their operating costs to taxpayers. They have managed to get government and taxpayers to not only take full risk for vaccine injuries and deaths, they have arranged for government and media to do most of the marketing and promotion of vaccine products. So most of the costs of running a business are either non-existent for vaccines, or they have managed to get others to pay for it. With the ever-increasing profits they enjoy, the vaccine industry continually sponsors the narrative that vaccines are good and perfect and no one should be against them. This even after taxpayers have paid billions of dollars for wrongful deaths caused by vaccines. But through all of our media, the vaccine industry constantly reminds us that there is no one more wrong-headed than an anti-vaxxer. How dare you question the sacred vax? That's the kind of thing you can do when you control media. Through private global organizations like Gavi and World Health Organization and public agencies like the CDC and FDA, the vaccine industry literally controls nation-states' policies on vaccination and healthcare in general. If there ever was a regulatory watchdog over the vaccine industry, those days are long gone. The vaccine industry has recruited government to not only be the marketer of their products, that same government is the purchaser, reseller, and promoter of most vaccine products. Government and media, in return for billions in advertising and outright bribes, vigorously perform the role of salesmen to push vaccine products globally and to promote the ludicrous idea that vaccines can simply do no wrong. They spread this propaganda not just by controlling media, but by controlling scientific research, controlling academia, and by lobbying for legislation that promotes pharmaceutical industry interests and suppresses all competition. All it takes is money. That is why you only hear good things about vaccines in all your mainstream media. The narrative is that anyone who questions vaccines is endangering public health. They shame people, they virtue signal, but they never tell you the real science and track record of vaccines. What you don't hear about is that the damage from these programs is huge. Every year, millions of people are killed or injured by vaccine products, but on the news, they speak as if to doubt the perfection of vaccines is socially irresponsible. Mainstream media sells airtime to vaccine companies, so media is captured by vaccine industry narratives. Why do you suppose, in the last few years, social media platforms and search engines started censoring any negative information about vaccines? All it takes is money. The vaccine industry has put such a lock on media that if you so much as question the safety or effectiveness of vaccines on any public platform, you are likely to be censored. What used to be common day-to-day free speech is now brutally and shamelessly suppressed. News reporters regularly speak of vaccines as if everyone wants them, and as if we all agree that adverse reactions are rare and trivial. We've all heard those self-contradicting narratives like if you get sick and were not vaccinated, that must be COVID because there's no longer any such thing as the common cold. And if you were vaccinated and you get sick or die, it wasn't caused by either COVID or the vaccination, it was just a coincidence. It's pretty obvious we're not getting the truth about COVID or vaccines. What you don't know definitely can hurt you. To download a free document on risks and side effects of vaccines, go to freedomtaker.com/vaccines. Vaccines carry risk of death and disabling injuries. If you accept vaccination for you or your children, you should be fully informed about all risks, and you should be given a choice, and you should not be denied access to any travel or other services for making that choice. But just imagine if you started a company and were able to get the government to buy your products, get the government to pay for all the mistakes you make and any harm you cause, get the government and media to censor any unfavorable information about your products and industry, force the public to use your products, and any press release you write up will be immediately reported by media as if it were hard news. But it gets worse. There used to be a very rigid and prolonged testing and approval process for vaccine products. It took 6 or 7 years. With COVID-19, the approval process was thrown out the window. Under the guise of a fabricated and politicized global emergency, they no longer have to conduct testing as they did before, and they can release the vaccine directly to the public and let that be the experiment to see if the product is safe or how well it works. We are constantly told over and over by government and media how safe and effective vaccines are when they cause over 100,000 deaths reported every year nationally and many more unreported. We are constantly told how vaccines prevent disease when we have more chronic disease now than ever before in history. More vaccines than ever before as well. More than 50% of children now have chronic disease, and independent research attributes much of that to vaccines. Yet we are constantly told by government, by media, that vaccines are so good for us. They are not. Vaccines are possibly the most profitable industry operating today, and those profits are used to lie to you, to keep the truth from you and keep you chronically ill. It's no secret in the medical industry that when people can be kept ill or are dependent on medications, medical industry profits are higher, and that includes the vaccine industry. We no longer know when our doctor is trying to help us or trying to make money. Hundreds of billions of dollars are spent to assure that people will think they need vaccinations, that people will never be told the hazards and harm caused by vaccinations, that people who are killed and injured by vaccines will have no recourse, and their families will be routed through a bureaucratic maze that leads nowhere for most of them. The proof of what I'm saying is that the real competition for vaccines is rarely mentioned by mainstream media. The real competition for vaccines is your own immune system. Society quickly develops herd immunity for any natural biological pathogens. The immune system is what has protected humanity through the ages, and it is the best protection we will ever have. Vaccines are clumsy, dangerous, crude, ineffective, deadly, and at the very best, experimental. But your government and media will never tell you that because they are paid to not tell you that. Do I have a right to express these facts and opinions? Of course I do. But I am guessing that it will not take long for the vaccine industry to suppress this video. If people like you do not share this video, it will disappear in the growing censorship abyss that swallows up objective vaccine truth these days. If you doubt anything I have said, I will refer you to some very important websites where you will find enough hard scientific reference to support everything I have said and then some. Those websites are childrenshealthdefense.org, americasfrontlinedoctors.com, James Corbett's CorbettReport.com, and Del Bigtree's Highwire podcasts at thehighwire.com. And at those websites you will find links to many other highly credible scientists and researchers who are not afraid to talk about vaccines honestly. Let me conclude by simply saying that the damage that may be done to your body and health by vaccines is irreversible. Once you are vaccinated, you cannot unvaccinate. Vaccines, any kind of injection, bypasses our natural immunity mechanisms and pathogenic defensive barriers. By injecting something, anything, you multiply the toxic effect it has on your body. In many cases, vaccines are intentionally toxic to shock your system into an artificial immune response. Injection is very dangerous, and the pharmaceutical industry, to a great extent, has prevented those words from being spoken, as it kills and injures people every day. That is why non-consensual vaccination was criminalized after World War II. That is why we must not let the propaganda drown out reality and common sense. That is why we need to share this information.